Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into a topic that I know a lot of you have been asking about, and that is how to manage your business finances when you're working with limited capital.
Yeah.
We see this all the time. People have great ideas for businesses, but they're not sure how to make it work when they don't have a ton of money to invest.
Right.
And, we're going to try to unpack some of that today.
Absolutely.
The source that we're using for this deep dive is called Business Finance Management with Limited Capital.
Mm.
And it's packed with all sorts of practical strategies and real-world examples. So we're going to try to distill all that information for you and share some of the key takeaways.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about this topic is that sometimes, having limited capital can actually be an advantage.
Oh, how so?
Oh, it forces you to be more creative, more resourceful. You have to think outside the box to find solutions. And that can lead to some really innovative approaches.
That's a great point.
Necessity is the mother of invention, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely.
So sometimes those constraints can actually lead to better outcomes.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
One of the things that the source really emphasizes is the importance of separating needs from wants.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially when you're in the early stages of a business.
Right.
It's all about survival at that point, making every single dollar count.
Yeah, it's very similar to personal finance.
Right.
Where you're trying to live within your means, but in a business context, I think the stakes are even higher.
How so?
Because you're not just responsible for yourself.
Right.
You're responsible for your employees, your customers.
Oh, yeah.
The success of your vision, the whole thing.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
It is.
The source actually uses Dropbox as an example here.
Oh, interesting.
Instead of spending a fortune on advertising, they created this simple explainer video that went viral.
I've seen that one.
Yeah, and it proves that you don't always need a huge budget.
Right.
To reach a massive audience.
Yeah, it's a great example of how a limited budget can force you to think outside the box,
Right.
They had to find a creative way to get their message out there,
Mm-hmm.
and they succeeded brilliantly.
I wonder if you think that was sort of a lucky break for them, or...
I mean, there's always an element of luck involved, right?
Yeah.
But I think they also had a really solid product,
Yeah.
and they were able to communicate its value in a way that resonated with people.
Right.
So it was a combination of factors, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that the source is a big advocate for is budgeting.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially when you're working with limited capital,
Oh,
it recommends tools like QuickBooks and Wave
Yeah.
to track every penny.
You got to know where your money's going, right?
Exactly.
Tracking your expenses is crucial,
Mm-hmm.
but it's only part of the picture.
Okay. What else is there?
Well, you also need to be able to forecast your cash flow, and that's knowing when money is coming in and when it's going out.
I see.
That helps you avoid surprises and make informed decisions about spending and investment.
Right. So you're not caught off guard.
Exactly.
Okay. So how do you do that? How do you forecast cash flow?
Well, there are different methods. You can use spreadsheets,
Mm-hmm.
software programs.
Okay.
There are even consultants who can help you with this.
Gotcha.
But the key is to have a system in place
Right.
to track your income and expenses and to project those numbers into the future.
Makes sense.
Hmm.
The source also talks about the 50-30-20 rule,
Oh, yeah.
which a lot of people might recognize from personal finance.
Hmm.
But they apply it to business here,
Interesting.
where 50% of the budget goes to essential expenses.
Okay.
30% is allocated for growth activities like marketing and product development,
Right.
and 20% is set aside for savings and building an emergency fund.
I see.
What do you think about that rule?
Well, I think it's a good starting point.
Okay.
It's a framework,
Mm-hmm.
but you might need to adjust those percentages
Mm,
based on your specific industry and business model.
that makes sense.
A software company, for example, might allocate more to product development,
Sure.
while a retail business might need to prioritize inventory and marketing.
Right. So it's not one size fits all.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm.
The source also highlights Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx.
Oh, yeah. She's amazing.
She started with only $5,000
Wow.
and managed every penny carefully, even doing her own marketing to avoid agency costs.
That's impressive.
Talk about bootstrapping, right?
Bootstrapping is a fantastic way to build a business,
Yes.
especially when you're starting out.
Mm-hmm.
It forces you to be resourceful,
Right.
to prioritize your spending,
Right.
and to really focus on what matters most.
I wonder if Sarah Blakely's story resonates with you at all. Do you see any parallels between her journey and your own business goals?
Oh, absolutely.
Uh,
I mean, there's so much to learn from her approach.
like what?
Well, it wasn't just about cutting costs. It was about finding creative ways to achieve her goals with limited resources.
I see.
She was scrappy,
Hmm.
and that scrappiness helped her build a successful business.
Yeah, that's inspiring.
It is.
The source dives into some really practical examples of bootstrapping,
Oh, like what?
like using existing equipment instead of buying the latest gadgets,
Right.
or leveraging free tools like Canva for design, Google Workspace for collaboration,
Hmm.
Trello for project management, things like that.
Those are great resources.
Yeah.
And then there's the power of bartering.
Oh, yeah.
Trading services with other businesses
Right.
can be a win-win situation.
Totally.
It allows you to access resources and expertise without spending cash.
Have you ever considered bartering?
I have actually.
Yeah.
I've traded my services for things like website design
Oh, wow.
and even legal advice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it can be a really great way to get what you need when you're starting out.
That's a great tip. The source also mentions MailChimp, the email marketing platform.
Oh, yeah.
They bootstrapped their way to $1 billion valuation
Wow.
without any venture capital,
That's incredible.
proving that it's possible to achieve massive success without relying on outside funding.
It's inspiring, right?
Totally.
MailChimp is a great example of how bootstrapping can lead to sustainable growth.
Yeah.
They focused on building a great product,
Mhm.
listening to their customers, and growing organically.
Right.
That takes discipline and patience,
Mm.
but the rewards can be enormous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
This brings us to the crucial topic of cash flow,
Oh, yeah.
the lifeblood of any business,
Absolutely.
especially in the early stages.
You got to keep the money coming in,
Right.
especially when you're bootstrapping.
Mm.
You need to be able to keep the lights on
Right.
and invest in growth.
Right.
What I like about this source is that it doesn't just offer generic advice.
Yeah.
It gets into specific strategies
Okay.
that can help you bring in cash fast.
Like what?
Well, for instance, they talk about the power of pre-orders.
Oh, yeah.
You're essentially getting paid up front
Right. Yeah.
before you even deliver the product or service.
Mm-hmm. That's a great way to manage cash flow
It is.
and validate your product idea at the same time.
Right, because if people are willing to pre-order,
Yeah.
it shows that there's demand for what you're offering.
That's a great point.
Hmm.
But are there any downsides to pre-orders?
Well, there are potential downsides.
Like what?
What if you can't deliver on time?
Oh, yeah.
Or what if the product doesn't live up to expectations?
Right.
There are risks involved,
Sure.
but if managed carefully,
Mm-hmm.
pre-orders can be a game changer for a young business.
Yeah, that's a good point. You always have to weigh the risks and benefits.
Absolutely.
The source also highlights the example of Tesla using pre-orders to fund their early production runs.
Oh, that's a great example.
It's a strategy that can work even for ambitious projects.
It's a testament to the power of building excitement and anticipation for your product. They created a buzz, and people were willing to put their money down even before the car was available.
Yeah, and they had a lot of hiccups along the way,
Some
but
did.
people were still, willing to
They
wait.
believed in the vision,
Yeah.
and they were willing to be patient.
The source then dives into the advantages of digital products like ebooks, online courses, templates.
Oh, yeah, those are great for bootstrappers.
Why is that?
Well, they have low production costs.
Right.
And the potential for high profit margins.
Mm-hmm.
There's no physical inventory to manage.
Right.
So you can scale your business much more easily.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Another strategy they mention is subscription models.
Oh, yeah, those are great.
Why do you like those?
Well, they create recurring revenue,
Right.
and they help you build a loyal customer base.
I see.
It's like you're building a community around your product or service,
Right.
and people are invested in its success.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Mm.
Now, let's shift gears to a topic that might not be as glamorous, but is equally important:
What's that?
minimizing fixed costs.
Oh, yes, that's crucial.
The source argues that reducing these recurring expenses is crucial when capital is limited.
Absolutely.
It allows for greater adaptability and resilience.
Fixed costs are like anchors weighing your business down.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
The more you can reduce them, the more agile you become,
Mm-hmm.
and the faster you can respond to changes in the market.
So what are some strategies for minimizing fixed costs?
Well, the source suggests using remote teams and freelancers instead of full-time employees.
Okay.
Renting instead of buying equipment or office space.
Right.
Negotiating aggressively with vendors to get better deals.
Gotcha. So it's all about being lean and mean.
Exactly.
I like it.
Mhm.
And to illustrate this point, the source mentions Airbnb.
Oh, yeah.
The founders lived on credit cards
Wow.
and rented out air mattresses to raise money
That's pretty extreme.
before securing funding.
It is.
That's a pretty extreme example of cost-cutting measures, wouldn't you say?
Airbnb is a classic example of bootstrapping taken to the extreme.
Yeah.
They were willing to do whatever it took to survive and grow their business.
Right.
It wasn't glamorous, but it worked.
Yeah, they were scrappy.
They were.
So it sounds like we're learning that, sometimes you have to get creative.
Absolutely.
You have to be willing to do things differently,
Yeah.
and you have to be really persistent.
Persistence is key.
Yeah.
You're going to face setbacks. You're going to face challenges,
Right.
but you got to keep going.
Don't give up.
Exactly.
So we've talked about, cutting costs and being really resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
But what about marketing?
Yeah.
A lot of people think that you need a big budget to do effective marketing,
Right.
but our source says that's not necessarily true.
It's not.
So what are some of the things that businesses can do to market themselves effectively?
Well, the source suggests starting a blog
Okay.
or a YouTube channel
Mhm.
or even a podcast
Interesting.
to create valuable content that attracts your ideal customers.
So it's all about content marketing,
It is.
providing value to your audience
Exactly.
and building relationships.
And establishing yourself as an expert
Right.
in your field.
Have you considered any of those strategies?
I have, actually.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about starting a YouTube channel
Oh, cool.
to share some of my knowledge and insights.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
What's holding you back?
Well, just finding the time to do it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of work,
It is.
but I think it would be worth it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
The source also highlights the power of organic social media.
Oh, yeah.
Using platforms like TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram
Mm-hmm.
to build a community and engage with potential customers.
Social media can be incredibly effective
Right.
if you use it strategically.
So what does that mean, using it strategically?
Well, it's not just about posting randomly.
Right.
It's about understanding your audience,
Okay.
creating content that resonates with them, and engaging with them authentically.
So you have to be really intentional about it.
You do.
What are some of the platforms that you found most effective?
It really depends on the business
Okay.
and the target market.
Right.
For some businesses, LinkedIn might be the best platform.
Yeah.
For others, it might be Instagram or TikTok.
I see.
It really depends on who you're trying to reach.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The source also mentions referral programs,
Oh, yeah, those could be great.
as a way to leverage your existing customer base
Mm-hmm.
to bring in new business.
Referral programs can be incredibly powerful
Why is that?
because they tap into the trust that already exists
Okay.
between your customers and their networks.
So it's word of mouth marketing,
It is.
but amplified.
Exactly.
I like that they specifically highlight Dropbox's referral program.
Oh, yeah, that was a brilliant one.
So tell us about that. How did it work?
Well, they offered free storage space
Okay.
for every new user referred.
So it was a win-win for everyone involved.
It was.
The existing customer got more storage space.
Mm-hmm.
The new customer got a free service.
Right.
And Dropbox got a new user.
And they were able to grow rapidly.
Wow. That's amazing.
It's a great example of how to create a referral program
Mm-hmm.
that aligns perfectly with your product and your target market.
So now let's talk about debt.
Okay.
It's something that a lot of entrepreneurs try to avoid.
Right.
But our source acknowledges that sometimes it's necessary,
It is.
even with limited capital.
The key is to be strategic about it.
So what does that mean, being strategic about debt?
Well, you need to understand the different types of debt available.
Okay.
The interest rates, the repayment terms.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a decision to be taken lightly.
Right. You don't want to just jump into something without really understanding it.
Exactly.
They caution against relying on high-interest debt.
Oh, yeah, like credit cards.
Right.
Credit card debt can be incredibly dangerous
Why is that?
because the interest rates are so high. If you're not careful, it can quickly spiral out of control.
So what are some better options?
Well, they suggest exploring things like government grants,
Okay.
small business loans,
Mm-hmm.
revenue-based financing.
What's revenue-based financing?
That's when investors provide capital
Okay.
in exchange for a percentage of your future revenue.
Interesting.
It can be a good option for businesses
Mm-hmm.
that have a proven track record.
But maybe not for brand new businesses.
Right?
The source even points out that Apple,
Oh, wow.
with its vast cash reserves,
Mm-hmm.
strategically used debt to finance growth at lower interest rates.
That's a great example.
It shows that debt isn't inherently bad,
Right.
It's about using it wisely.
Exactly.
So Apple was basically saying, hey, we can borrow money at a low interest rate
Hmm.
and then invest that money in our business
Right.
and get a higher return.
It's smart financial management,
Yeah,
even for large companies.
that's a great point. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From prioritizing needs and wants
Mm-hmm.
to bootstrapping, marketing, managing debt,
Right.
building that essential emergency fund.
It's a lot to think about,
It is.
but it's all important stuff.
It is.
If you want to build a successful business,
Absolutely.
especially with limited capital.
But before we wrap up,
Yeah.
the source has some excellent book recommendations.
Oh, cool.
For, each offering a deeper exploration of specific financial concepts and strategies.
I love book recommendations.
Me too.
Always looking for something new to read,
Yeah.
especially on this topic.
Right.
It's always evolving.
It is.
There's always something new to learn.
So what are some of your favorite books on business finance?
Well, it's hard to choose just one,
Sure.
but I always find myself going back to The Lean Startup
Oh, yeah.
by Eric Ries.
That's a classic.
It is.
Why do you like that one so much?
Well, it just really emphasizes
hmm
building a successful business with minimal resources. Using data to test your assumptions, pivoting quickly when necessary.
So it's all about being agile
It is.
and adaptable.
Exactly.
The source also recommends Profit First
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that one.
by Mike Michaelovich,
Mm-hmm.
which introduces a unique cash management system
Okay.
specifically designed for small businesses.
Have you read that one?
I haven't yet.
It's really good.
What's so good about it?
Well, it challenges the traditional way of thinking about profit.
Oh, how so?
Instead of waiting until the end of the month or year
Mm-hmm.
to see what's left over,
Right.
he encourages business owners to prioritize profit from the start
I see.
by allocating a percentage of each incoming dollar to profit.
Okay.
Owners pay taxes, operating expenses.
So it's like you're paying yourself first,
You are.
and then everything else comes after that.
That's the idea.
That's interesting.
It's a really different way of thinking about it,
It is.
but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I can see how that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Especially for small businesses
Yeah.
that are maybe struggling to make ends meet.
Exactly.
And for those looking to develop a deeper understanding of
Mhm.
financial statements and metrics,
Okay.
the source suggests Financial Intelligence for Entrepreneurs
Oh, yeah, that's a great one.
by Karen Berman and Joe Knight.
Mhm.
Have you read that one?
I have. It's really helpful.
What did you learn from it?
Well, it just really demystifies the language of finance.
Okay.
It explains things in plain English
Right.
so that entrepreneurs can understand it.
Because sometimes it can feel like a foreign language.
It can,
Right.
especially if you don't have a background in accounting.
Exactly.
But this book makes it really accessible.
I like that.
Yeah.
The source also recommends The $100 Startup
Oh, yeah, that's a fun one.
by Chris Guillebeau,
Hmm.
which shares inspiring stories
Okay.
of entrepreneurs who launch successful businesses with minimal investment.
I love those kinds of stories.
They too.
It's so inspiring to see what people can accomplish
Right.
with very little resources.
And it gives you hope,
It does.
that you can do it too.
Exactly.
And lastly, they mention 0 to 1.
Oh, yeah, by Peter Thiel.
Right.
He's a fascinating guy.
He is.
Very controversial,
Right.
but very smart.
What do you like about that book?
Well, he just challenges entrepreneurs to think big,
Mm-hmm.
to pursue ambitious goals,
Right.
to create something truly unique.
To make a dent in the universe.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
remember that managing your business finances effectively
Yeah.
isn't just about crunching numbers.
Right.
It's about making strategic decisions,
Mm-hmm.
being resourceful,
Absolutely.
embracing creativity,
Yeah.
even when you're working with limited capital.
It's about building a solid foundation for your business,
Right.
one that can withstand challenges and
Mhm.
support your growth for years to come.
I love that.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us for this deep dive
It's been fun.
into business finance management with limited capital.
Yeah. I hope it's been helpful for everyone listening.
I hope so too.
There's a lot of great information out there,
There is.
and I encourage everyone to keep learning
Absolutely.
and keep growing.
Now go out there
Mhm.
and make those entrepreneurial dreams a reality.
Get this.